Okay, so we have cost center. Yesterday we discussed assessment, distribution, periodic reposting, indirect activity allocations, direct activity allocations. So let's discuss relationships that we will maintain here. And these are the cost centers that we'll have, and the categories will be these: administration, production, maintenance, quality assurance, and so on. So assessment, cost center cafeteria, which is this 104, is used by other cost centers as shown in following table. So allocation method that will be used is assessment. Now assessment over here is cost center cafeteria is being used at different times for lunch, dinner, breakfast by workers from various other areas, departments, which are represented by cost centers in SAP. So cafeteria charges will be allocated based on number of employees. So cafeteria cost center also has 5 employees. Okay. So cafeteria cost center and receiving cost center. Okay. Each of these cost centers is sending 75 people to cafeteria for lunch, dinner, breakfast. Okay. And based on the number of employees, the charges, expenses being borne and incurred at cafeteria will be also shared by these cost centers. And some of the expenses will also be directly allocated to cafeteria. That will be recorded as expenses. Okay, so that was assessment. Okay, for assessment, we use SKF, which is like statistical key figure. Now, what is statistical? This is a very technical term, but SKF can have any unit of measurement. It can be meters, it can be kgs, it can be hours, it can be number of employees. Over here, it's number of employees. So statistical key figure, it's a difficult difficult term, but we keep it simple like KPIs, okay, or a standard or a metric. Okay, so the metric over here is that this cost center is sending 25 people to cafeteria for lunch dinner, and that lunch dinner will be costed to 109 or 108, whatever. All right. What is periodic reposting? To simplify the postings, we use cost collector cost center. What is a cost collector? It collects all the cost at one place. When it post all the costs like rent, electricity, the collector cost center during that period. At the end of the period, we allocate to 3 production cost centers using allocation method, periodic reposting. First, we saw assessment, cafeteria to cost center. Now, FI posting coming to collector cost center, and then it is going to production cost center. So this is periodic reposting at month end. So rent is allocated based on SKF, statistical key figure, percentage. As I said, number of employees, meters, kgs, hours, or percentage, anything can be SKF, statistical key figure. Electricity charges is allocated based on number of units. Okay. So the cost collector collects all the rent and electricity, and the receiving cost center is using the rent and electricity as per the recorded units, like 50%, 30%, 20%, and so on. Okay, so periodic reposting is allocating and from one cost center to multiple used based on SKF at the end of the period. So these are the receiving cost center, production cost centers. Distribution cost center. Plant admin takes care of 3 production cost centers. Costs like salaries of admin department, stationery charges, vehicle maintenance, travel expenses are recorded in the cost center. Admin is taking care of salaries of administration, stationery like pen, pencils, paper, and vehicle maintenance like tuning, oil maintenance, oil refill, refueling. Traveling expenses of the employees are being recorded in this cost center, which is plant admin. At the end of period, we allocate all the costs to three production using allocation method distribution. Salary of the admin is allocated based on number of employees in the receiver cost center. Stationery, vehicle maintenance, traveling are allocated based on percentage basis. So salary is number of employees. Stationery charge is 25% by this cost center, 50 by this, 25 by this. Vehicle maintenance again on percentage, traveling expenses also on percentage. So this is distribution. Okay. There are multiple SKFs based on percentage and number of units or employees. Okay. Indirect activity allocation. Quality control cost center gives quality check service to three production cost centers. Activity type testing hours is to be allocated to three production cost centers. Now, testing hours of the production of the product of semi-finished good, those are testing hours used by quality control cost center. Quantity of testing hours allocated based on number of tested items. Quantity based on number of tested items. Allocated activity type is tested hours. Allocated activity. Activity is testing hours. Okay, like 5 hours. And quantity and allocation basis SKF test items. Allocation method used is indirect activity allocation. Okay, so tested items using allocated activity, activities hours, and in that hours, how many items will be tested, will be allocated to these cost centers. Direct activity. Plant maintenance cost center gives maintenance service to three production centers. Activity type maintenance is hours, is to allocate three production cost centers with those hours. Actual quantity maintenance hours is recorded in receiving cost center when the service are consumed. So over here, it's hours and hours, no items. So that's why it's direct activity. Over there, it was indirect, yani, which is in those hours, how many items were tested. Allocated activity type is maintenance hours. Allocation method is direct activity allocation. In indirect, it is what? Hours against items. So indirect activity. Okay, so this is basically how we are using various methods to distribute cost from cost centers and capturing FI postings from one from one cost center to other cost center using various methods, which is assessment, distribution, allocation, direct and indirect activity allocation. Difference is, broadly speaking, primary and secondary cost elements plus the trail. Either you get a summarized total of the activity that is allocated, or you get line item based details of the allocation. Okay, so we'll just give it a revision again. Distribution for allocating primary cost elements are used in distribution. Breakup is detailed at cost element level. Used for planned and actual costing. Detailed analysis available at sender receiving. So distribution distributes with line item. Okay. Used if sender cost center is important for cost analysis. Creates more number of line items, uses more memory, which is not the case in S/4HANA anymore. Periodic reposting, similar distribution, and primary cost elements are used. Detailed breakup is used. used for actual. So periodic reposting is for capturing actual costs, not planned. Analysis available at receiving cost center only. Okay, analysis. Use of sender is just a collector used just to simplify account assignment during FI posting, like common CC. We've already seen that in the last lecture. Creates less number of line items. Distribution. Okay. Sorry. Reposting. Assessment. Used for allocating primary and secondary cost. Assessment also captures primary and secondary. Secondary cost element, category assessment used. Data is summarized on assessment cost elements. No detailed breakup. Used for plan and actual cost. Okay. Indirect activity used for allocating activity like man hours, machine hours. Secondary cost elements, internal allocation are used. Data is summarized on allocation cost elements used for plan and actual cost. So so this is what is cost allocation is about. So we'll continue this